Hi, wanted to talk to you today about a problem that I have. So, I am a rule follower and I really like to know what my rules are and I want to know what my parameters are so I don't go outside the box and I stay and I do what I'm supposed to do. And sometimes that can actually get me into trouble, at least emotionally and spiritually. There is something that God convicted me of a while back, and that was speeding. Now, I am not here to tell anybody how to drive. If you aren't one of my 23 plus drivers that I manage every day, then I am not here to tell you how to drive. But God convicted me about it, and He said, you're supposed to obey the law of the land, and so you need to obey the law of the land. So I started, monitoring my speed really carefully. And when I would not monitor it and I would catch myself going over a little bit, I'd have this sudden sense of intense anxiety because I was not doing what I was supposed to do. I was not being obedient. And it literally would cause my heart to grip. And I had to learn and remember and remind myself that God is not up there saying, now, Tina, I told you to do this, and now that you're not doing it, I am so angry with you. And that's not God's nature. Now, does our sin displease God? Absolutely. And I never want to say it doesn't. But we also need to remember that God gives us grace, and that we need to give ourselves grace. We need to recognize that it is absolutely impossible for us to be perfect. And we are going to fall and we're going to do things that we shouldn't do. And when we do that, it's important that we go to God, that we repent or turn away from doing those things, and that we start doing the right things. That's very important. But just as important, or maybe almost as important, is that we give ourselves grace. Because I don't know about you, but most women that I know have trouble forgiving themselves. So when they do something wrong or something doesn't go right in their world, they tend to hold on to guilt. And God never wanted us to live under guilt. He wants us to live in freedom. He says, we have the perfect law of liberty, and we should be able to take joy, not ever to walk in sin because we don't want to do that, but to be able to look at our sin and when we've repented of it, recognize that God doesn't remember it anymore. And so for us to sit and stew in it, we are just doing something that God has no recollection of, right? He's saying, what are you talking about? Why are you coming to me about this? I don't even remember that you did it. Now, we understand what that means. And God says He throws it as far as the east is from the west to remember it no more. He means He doesn't hold it against us anymore. But I wanted you to be able to get a hold of that sense that you're forgiven. And once you're forgiven, you gotta let it go. You can't live in that frustration and that depression that's brought about by seeing ourselves not as God sees us, as His children, His forgiven, His righteous, His loved children, but we see ourselves as something less than. And that's as much of a sin as any sin that you could commit.